just wanted to thank everybody for their recent comments and just for all the support with Cordoba Organics. Actually, today was a little play date with a friend of Amour's, and it turned out to be a great little event with a couple of adults. And funny enough, I was inside. I wanted to take a second out because they were talking, and we were talking about a couple new shows that recently came out, and one of them was chewing gum. And you know, it's interesting when you do have opinions about stuff. Most people do hear them as judgments, but that's not what that is. We're living in a society now where it's almost an allergen to be able to express oneself. And, you know, just even in being inside, it was funny because it was like, oh, I love you when you're drunk, Celina, drink more. And, you know, there's this whole thing with this energy of peer pressure, and you don't have to fall into it. You know, at 39, I've definitely gotten comfortable in this space of knowing that I'm not gonna, you know, favor everyone. People aren't gonna like your energy naturally just for some reasons. And I think half my life I really was in a space where I was trying to convince people to hear me, or, you know, I felt like I couldn't be heard in a sense. And that's a very delicate space to be in because, you know, you don't want to necessarily force your energy on anybody, but these are members of one's family sometimes. And I think that those given circumstances, especially in the beginning of growing up, are real special in just how you develop, you know, communication skills. And we were talking about, you know, just growing and the ability to grow out of, you know, who you once were or becoming something more, and, you know, distractions of the world. And basically what I was thinking about was when I first started the Truth Be Told series with the Seer, you know, we just moved out here, it was a couple years, and I definitely wanted to take a moment to decompress from New York. You know, we've been there for so many years, and in watching a couple of the shows and just going with the flow of what it is our intent was, which was not only to share and educate and teach, but was really just to also almost own one's space and not necessarily negate what others were saying, but tell one story. You know, it's almost scary to be able to do so. And I want to remind people that if you feel as though you are in a space where you're not supported, your thoughts, you can get out of it. You don't have to necessarily be around the demographic you grew up in. You don't have to stay around people that are constantly making you feel as though you have to explain yourself, especially when your intent is based in love. So, you know, sometimes people don't believe that. You know, I think that, like I talked about before, a lot of women's commonalities are based in, unfortunately, trauma, and is based in not only relationships, but how many men we've slept with, you know, the traumas, the negative things that happen. And I didn't want to focus on any of those things in my life, not even the whole sex stuff, but just what even brought me to move out here to Miami. You know, when I first watched my energy on the Truth Be Told stuff, I was like, word, I got it off my chest, you know? But I didn't want to stay there, and I don't want to be an aggressive, hard woman. But coming from Brooklyn and being raised the way that I was, which is always to communicate one's truth. But for me, I'm thankful that I don't have and hold a lot of the things that have happened to me. These are events in my life, like, you know, I talked about, in a sense, like losing my mom and how that happened, and things in my family of, you know, losing the family house that I grew up in, and all these things that were traumatic. I didn't want that to define who I was and to be the only story of Celina. So that's something that I realized. People definitely, I got up because I felt my hair a little bit moist, but people definitely are used to applauding the negative. So for me, you know, I didn't want to stay in that space of feeling as though I always had to defend my family or, you know, my child or my sanctity and all these things that really meant a lot to me. So, you know, at this stage of my life, I'm grateful, and I remind people, even in watching chewing gum, don't compromise your integrity for a paycheck. You know, I noticed that not only in Hollywood, but we talked about this many times. Why is it that black women have to subjugate themselves to such low base energy, such hating ways of feeling about oneself? You know, I couldn't get through the first episode, I'm not gonna lie. I'm very proud of the sister for, you know, of course, expanding her brand and taking the role, because we all need jobs, but I'm always very, very, very alarmed and not shocked anymore. But why is it that we have to be at such lowly states of self-respect and loving oneself, and the blonde hair and the blue contacts? Once that went down and she turned to the camera and was like, oh my God, I love it, I was like, of course you do, because this is the message that wants to be promoted and that is constantly perpetuated, especially with dark-skinned women. It's like we're constantly angry, we're constantly insecure, we're constantly searching for that does not exist. And that's what gets supported. You know, Insecure, all these shows that definitely do tell one side of the story, but there's a whole other side. And that's really where my energy is also focused, is in creating more conscious writing, creating more works that relate to oneself. You know, we don't all have to have multitudes of partners in order to know ourselves as women. You know, someone said to me the other day, my God, it's sometimes embarrassing to listen to the things you talk about. And this is exactly why you can turn me off. You know, I'm not in a space of feeling ashamed about the experiences I've had. And in having just, you know, one, it's interesting, even in being where I'm at, it's not something you talk about, because again, it's like those days where women were virgins, and you don't talk about being a virgin if you're going on a date at 22 or 23. It's either a great runaway or an extreme attraction. And for myself, you know, your personal life is definitely that, but I also don't want to be in a space where I feel as though we cannot, as a community, support each other as individuals. You know, sometimes people like to remember you or like to place you in a box, and that goes back to the trauma, that goes back to the things that they remember that might have been alarming. You know, when you talk about things from a passionate place, it's often misconstrued. So I'm grateful not to be in a space where I feel what I felt once I left New York, which was really feeling as though we didn't have an opportunity to just know how to raise our son without having 10 people outside our front door. And when you don't have anything coming in, but you're giving out so much, it's only up to one's self to take a look at the environment and say, wait a minute, you know, I'm doing a lot, but is my busyness equating to getting things done? And, you know, it goes all back to where we are in life and saying that you have the freedom to make a choice. And don't ever feel based on how long you've done something. Sometimes your body and your mind gets used to pattern behaviors, but we talk about creating new ways of existing and new ways of evolving, but you can't do that in an environment that doesn't constitute one's own growth. So if you have to fight in a sense to be at peace, that means not entertaining certain chaos, then that's the choice that you must make. And I say that to say, with Chewing Gum and with all these shows, you know, I hope that as a society, as Black women, we can also accept roles or not accept certain roles that just express one aspect of our intellect, one aspect of our beauty, and one aspect of our soul's purpose, which is to constantly you know, feel as though we're not enough. And that's just something that is not only deplorable, but it's not to say that it's not taking place on a rampant level. So, you know, young women out there that have had one or two lovers, you know, don't feel as though you have to be peer pressured to do something that doesn't feel authentic to you. You know, after an amazing run, you know, I don't feel as though anything is over. I laughed the other day because I was talking to a woman that considers herself a single mother, but, you know, the man is present and the man is there. So regardless to your emotional body, focus on the things that you do well. I will never divorce myself from my culture. I will never divorce myself from the work that Asir and I have done and have created. I remember the first 10 years was just astrology, just, you know, UCC and history, and now 16 years in to be where we are with not only understanding private banking. I think that for us it was a really wise thing to refocus the energy on the work, because that is really where our intent from day one was, to meet someone of his intellect, but also for him to attract someone of my ancestry. Really sparked a great union, and that's something that not only created Amor, but it's how we met Myra Shira L. God bless the dead. But even thinking about astrology and different forms of thought processes, so many people use these things as a means to try to figure out oneself or other people. And in being a heavy studier of astrology, one thing I want to tell people is that it's just it's the base. It is the base ingredient of your personal recipe, and you can grow. I remember Myra, when she first looked at my chart, it was like, oh my God, you're a Virgo with the moon in Capricorn, and you're a double 2-2, and all these things that were so alarming. But, I remember years later, she apologized and said, I'm sorry that I kind of wrote you off like that. And that's something, when you do understand your chart and astrology, you start to say, okay, I'm the kind of personality that can be a little compulsive and can also make other people feel as though they just can't do enough to please or be on my level. And just because I wash my hair, I don't wear an ounce of makeup, I always laugh that, the simplicity seems so complex nowadays. And, that goes back to saying astrology is unfortunately being used in inappropriate ways by people that don't understand the complexity of the science. Once you do understand your moon and your rising and your sun sign, you can start to think of things in ways to better yourself, but also to quiet yourself when you know it's not your opportune time to necessarily be, communicating. So I say all that to say, don't necessarily write anyone off based on their sign or their chart or what you think they may be. We are so much more as a people, only if we allow ourselves to be. So, with that, I say love yourself unconditionally. Don't feel compromised or pressured to experience things that you just know aren't you, and stay authentic and true. All right, you guys, much love and myrrh. Peace out.